So let's have a conversation about the different types of trusts. In a previous conversation, we've touched on what a trust is, how they can be used. Give me some insight into the different types of trust for inheritance tax planning. So things like flexible reversionary, loan trusts, and so forth.
So there's three trusts that are often used by financial planners during lifetime to try and mitigate inheritance tax. The simplest one is just a loan trust. Mm-hmm. So what happens is that you lend your money to a trust.
Yep.
And let's say that when you're 40, you lend it £100,000. And that money is invested. And in really, really simple terms, for the purposes of this conversation, what you're doing is you're putting the growth on that money outside your estate. You're still owed the £100,000, and on your death, you're entitled to that money back. And you are entitled to it back over a period of time. You can have it back if you want, whenever you like. But what you're essentially trying to do is, if that 100 grand would have, let's say, doubled every 10 years, you start off at 40, it's 100 grand. At 50, it's 200 grand. At 60, it's 400 grand. And at 70, that'd be 800 grand. So let's say that you did that and you didn't touch it because you didn't need the money. At the end of the process, you'd be owed £100,000. Your estate would be owed that £100,000, and you might want to take some interest or whatever on it as well. But essentially, the growth is going to sit outside your estate, which means that you've still had the flexibility to get your 100 grand back, but you've put all of the growth from 40 to 80 outside the estate.
Okay,
does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, I mean, I've oversimplified that massively, but that's the basic nuts and bolts of it. But that doesn't solve the problem of the 100 grand that you had to start with.
Okay.
Yeah, but it does allow you to have the money back. Yeah, and like everything, you can have pretty much anything you want, but you can't have everything. Yeah. So you then have a couple of other arrangements that we tend to use during lifetime. One of them is called a discounted gift trust. So you can make a gift trust at any time, but the discounted bit comes from the fact that what you're going to do as the settler. So trusts have three parties fundamentally. They're the settler, that's the person who's given the money. Mm-hmm. You have the trustees, that's the person who looks after the money, or the people who look after the money. And then you have the beneficiaries. They're the people who are ultimately entitled to benefit from the money. Yeah. So what happens with a discounted gift trust is that typically you'd be underwritten. So with the insurance companies effectively are seeing how long they think you're going to live. And then they apply that through a factor and through a mechanism. And what they may do, depending on how long they think you're going to live, is they may give you a discount on the gift based on the amount of income stream that you're going to have over the period of time that they think you're going to be alive.
Okay.
Yeah. So, this is one for an overhead projector, a flip chart, or whatever. Yeah. But in the process,
I'm nodding along, but I guess it's why you need people like yourself that go through years of exams and experience to fully understand the ins and outs of this, so you can make the correct advice in a way. And it's not something that's for everybody, because what you're doing is the money you're putting in, you can't really have back. Yeah.
But you're reserving an income stream from it.
Okay.
And that income stream typically is tax deferred. So it means that you're not going to pay any tax on it at the point that you get it, until you've had a full return of the amount of money that you put in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, where the benefit of this is that, and it's a cheery benefit, is that you're only deemed to have made a gift of the net amount. Okay, so let's say you put £100,000 in, and they gave you a discount of 30%. You're only deemed to have given away 70%.
Okay.
Yeah, the other 30% is what they think is going to come back to you. So they'll give you that discount of the 30%. So effectively, if you do die during the 7-year period that starts ticking on the day that you make the gift, only £70,000 would fall back into your estate rather than the full 100,000. Mm-hmm. So the benefit would really accrue if you died very early. As I said, it was cheery. The downside, of course, is that you can't just call your money back as you could do in the first example with the loan trust. The other, as I tend to present these, I present them in this order, and then I explain that the next version of the stuff that we tend to use is a little bit more complicated, and then people go, "Oh my God," roll their eyes. And that's a flexible reversionary trust. Now, very simply, what this is allowing is allowing a series of reversions, hence the name, to come back to either the settler or the beneficiaries during lifetime, hence the flexible.
Yep.
And what you're doing is you're establishing an investment again, and you're making it so that, for argument's sake, 10% of the money matures every year for the first 10 years.
Okay.
So theoretically, you could have all your money back in a 10-year period. It'd be pointless doing the planning, and you'd incur a load of fees, and you'd have just had your money back, which would be, completely pointless. But it is there if you need it. Yeah. Now, what happens is that just before the end of each anniversary, the trustees, who are the people that get all the bad jobs here, the trustees are the ones who have to do all the work. They get a letter saying, that the trust is about to offer the reversion. What do you want to do with the money?
Yeah.
Do you want to settle it back to the settler?
Okay.
Or do you want to pass it on to the beneficiaries? Which, let's say you had a grandchild that was at university who had their own nil rate band, but they weren't using it because they were being a diligent student. You could assign those benefits out to them and make use of the tax available to them at the time. The tax break available to them at the time. If you needed money back and you thought, well, actually, do you know what? I'd like 10 grand back this year or whatever, because I fancy a better holiday or whatever, or I need to pay for a knee replacement. It might be 20 grand, but
or two hips,
or two hips, like me. Yeah.
There you go.
You could revert that back to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. There might be some tax implications, but you could. Or the final option, which is the one that most people who are really using this to try and avoid inheritance tax do, is they roll that onto year 11.
Okay.
So basically they push that out to the back of the process. So it might be that you actually never take any money out of it, and you never assign any money out of it, and you just leave it and all the growth's in there. Now the benefit, the benefit to those two, that one and the discounted gift trust, is that if in 7 years you haven't died, that money is now out of your estate and won't fall back into it. Okay. Now, what that means is that if you start planning young, you get a series of goes at this. Now, people tend to limit those investments which are typically chargeable lifetime transfers. And I'll talk about chargeable lifetime transfers or potentially exempt transfers in a bit more depth if you want me to in a minute. Okay. But because you're having some kind of benefit from it, it's typically considered to be a chargeable lifetime transfer. And that has a limitation of 325,000 to be invested before there's an immediate tax charge. Okay. Anything above that has an immediate tax charge of 20% on the bit above. Yeah. So if you did 500,000, you'd have a 20% tax charge on 175 grand. Okay. Yeah. Ignoring all other allowances. So what you're basically trying to do is every 7 years shift a nil rate band out of your estate. So if you start doing that when you're 50, likelihood is a 50-year-old person will live well into their 80s. You might get a good 5 of these goes. Yeah. Yeah. 4 or 5 probably. If you start when you're 80, you've got a much shorter time, and you've probably also got more money. Yeah. Right.
So is that like a bit like a VCT, that if you take a VCT out every single year for a series of years, you get the cumulative kind of impact of the,
No, it's very different. So first of all, the VCT belongs to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what you're doing is the difference between the distinction that you're making is that with the VCT reverts back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What we're doing here is we're saying, I've put this money aside. After 7 years, it no longer belongs to me on day one.
Yeah.
But after 7 years, it doesn't count back into my estate. So if you start out with an estate of £2 million, let's say, and you put 325,000 into one of those two trusts that I just mentioned, and you don't touch it, at the end of 7 years, whatever's left on the other side of your equation is still in your inheritance tax box. You can do another 325,000. So if you were 50 when you started this and you had 4 goes at that, that's 4 lots of 325,000, which I make to be 1.3 million pounds that you've shifted out of your estate. Yeah. But most importantly, you've also shifted the growth on that money out of your estate. So if you die in year 6, you might think, well, that's been pointless, but it hasn't, because whatever you put in has grown, hopefully, if you're investing well and markets go in your favour. But if that was now worth 450,000, only 325,000 would fall back into your estate.
Okay.
So the other bit would be outside.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Yeah. So, and the other part of it is that although it does fall back into your estate and uses your nil rate band, it isn't cumulative for the purposes of totting up to the 2 million figure, which is relevant.